So Scott, let's talk first about people, because everybody says, hire great people, hire A players, all of that. How do you do it?
I vote yes.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Although, as I mentioned, there's a wonderful Dilbert cartoon where he says, I thought people were our best resource. And he says, no, we did a survey. They ranked 9th. He says, what was 8th? He said, carbon paper. But we all know that people really are a great resource. So how do you find them?
I'll pass on one tip. Check references and a way to check references. Because the people you're checking references with know that person vastly better than you do. But the problem is when you call people today and get references, people are nice. And so what do they tell you? Oh, yeah, she's great, yeah, she's great. So let them go on. Don't take any notes. Discount everything they say. When they've kind of expired from the glad handing, then say, well, among all the people you've seen in this position, on a 0 to 10 scale, where would this person rank? And they go, well, 7. And you say, well, why isn't this person a 9 or a 10? And now you'll finally start learning. And if you should have certain key hiring criteria, certain personality characteristics that are a short list, like 4 of them, that are essential. Then go through each one and ask the person, okay, for being a learner, across all the people you've seen in and around that level, on a 0 to 10 scale, how does this person rank as a learner? And then you get a number, and then you can ask why they rated it that way. This is the way to turn reference checking from vapid glad handing into something very specific, where you actually start learning where the issues might be, if there are some.
Do you go outside of the references that they've given you?
Oh, absolutely. Then ask that person, well, start with the references they gave you, unless you know of others. But if you don't know of others, and then ask that person, well, who else should I talk to? Who else knows this person well? And then you'll start getting the references beyond the ones they put on the list. Because, even an axe murderer will have 3 good references. So, the axe salesman.
What are some of the common characteristics of the kind of people you like to hire?
Well, some of it's naturally career specific for that career path.
Sure.
But let me think about the ones that would be ones I look for in virtually everyone. Smart, a learner, gets things done, cares. A learner is really important because for any of our jobs, for any of the growth that you're doing, you need somebody who's got to be able to figure out the new stuff. They can't just play the old tapes and do what they got taught at some other company. If they're going to be really good, and they got to be a sponge for learning. It's got to be what they wake up and what they look for, and you want that in your business as well. So smarts are obvious. Learner. Maybe I'd go to cares next. Somebody who deeply cares about other people, cares about customers, cares about doing a good job. You can't retrain somebody who doesn't care deeply and then gets things done. There's a real difference between how much literal work and progress and effectiveness there is between people. People equally smart, equally driven. Some people just can get a lot done. People will agree with them. People will follow them. They can process work. They can figure out what's most important and work on that. Where other people they spend the same amount of time, but they get half as much, a third as much, 1/5 as much done. And you don't have time for that. Mm-hmm. So smart, a learner, gets stuff done, lots of it, and cares deeply.
Great. Let's talk about the tech landscape. You've entered a lot of spaces, most of which have been very crowded spaces. Personal finance, payroll, some of the other things you've gone into over the years, some of which you've left, loans, health, and so on.
No, we're still in health.
You're still doing it? Okay. Well, how has your thinking around competition changed, and now that you're the sort of the big guy?
Well, I don't think. I think big is a mirage. I mean, we try to operate as a network of startups. When we're at our best, that's the way we work. Sometimes we screw up. But yeah, we've generally been about the last company to enter a whole bunch of categories. Really, only Microsoft usually comes in after us. They know how to copy a good thing when they see it. And when, in order to do that and succeed, we've generally done that by disrupting the existing players. Classic Clay Christensen disruption. If you haven't read the Innovator's Solution, particularly Chapter 2 of the Innovator's Solution, I'd put that on the required reading list. Also, and along with that, I'd read, there's an article that Clay wrote in the MIT Sloan Journal a decade ago. I'd put that one, where he crisply defines the two kinds of disruption, and they're very specific. It's not the loose gibberish that most people use the word disruption. It's very specific, and we've generally done exactly that. Unintentionally, we didn't know we were doing it, it's just. But what we were trying to do was find the most important problem that's not solved, that we and others we could enable could solve. And so, by trying to find the most important unsolved problem, if the problem's not important, don't bother. Roy Rosen, who you know, said, if you want a big business, solve a big problem. If you want a little business, solve a little problem. And then we want to go after the problems that are not solved. If it's already solved, let Microsoft go after it. We want to go after the things nobody's figured out, either because they haven't understood that problem before, or because they understood the problem but didn't really solve it. And so that means we typically go at things countercultural from the rest of the industry. When people were adding tons of features to software, we were putting very few features in. When we produced the first accounting software with no accounting in it, that was QuickBooks. We entered the payroll business by not doing key chunks of the payroll process. We didn't do payroll taxes, didn't file the taxes or anything like that. But we could sell our product at 1/20th the price. We're now going into to help. We do payroll for 1.2 million firms in the United States, double anybody else. And so we're now trying to go into the benefits areas and find where is there a giant unsolved problem that we can solve. And the biggest one in benefits, you can guess, is health coverage. Small businesses are dropping health coverage like crazy. And the Affordable Care Act doesn't have any mandate for health insurance coverage to be offered if you're under 50 employees. And I think our average company we do payroll for is like 7 employees. And so it was 60%, it's 40%, it'll be down to 20% we'll offer health coverage. So we've thoroughly tested and are now launching the first health coverage with no insurance in it. So when you approach things, so it was difficult being so countercultural because it meant we actually got no venture capital when we were young. All the venture capitalists fled because we were so different than what they believed. We were running against the common beliefs. But that's how we've done well versus the traditional rivals.
You've also done some acquisitions like ChipSoft, the original TurboTax players, and so on. How did you integrate, or did you integrate those companies into Intuit?
What we did is a function of the nature of what we were buying and why we were buying it. And I don't want to integrate. I find it's just a misleading concept. That's not success. Integration is not success. We want to make that thing that we acquired awesome and great and help them be the best they can be. We're not driven to integrate. We want to maximize. And so it's entirely different. Some units we keep entirely separate because they should be separate. Others we blend right in. Some we bought because we wanted their customer base and the management team didn't want to stay, and so we just took the customer base and totally integrated. But it's what will drive for the greatest success for that team, that unit, that technology that we're acquiring.
And you acquired Mint from first round, for one of our first round companies, and we're very, very pleased with the way that one. Hopefully, that's turned out well.
The business is triple in size, I think, from when we bought it, and there was great DNA there. That was an area where we blew it. We were not the disruptor. The Mint team was. So, and our internal effort didn't compete, so we bought the best team and the disruptive approach because we wanted to be the disruptor.
What can you say about the process? You've moved into it from the 80s, 90s box package software, get it in a box, get it to the stores.
You remember those old days.
I do unfortunately remember them. I've got rows and rows of boxes back home somewhere. But to now being cloud-based, mobile-based, I can do my QuickBooks stuff on my phone or my iPad. How has that transition happened, and has it been hard, easy?
It's different, but not hard, because we either solve the same problems, but now we can use better technology to do it. So with taxes, who here it's tax time? Who likes to spend time on your taxes? Raise your hand if you love spending time on your taxes. Okay, virtually no one except some people we employ like to do that. I'm getting a prop out here. For most people, they want to get done with the taxes as fast as they can get it done right to get the most deductions. And with mobile allows us to do stuff we could never do before. So standard TurboTax will do my taxes. Bill Gates' sister uses a version of it to do his taxes. And they complain there are not enough zeros allowed in the fields. They say, Bill, there's not a lot of demand for all those zeros. So as a result, since it'll do everyone's taxes, it's really universal. That's great. But if you have super simple taxes, and a quarter of the taxpayers have super simple taxes, about 40% of them are pretty simple, it's too slow. It takes too much time. So we had a team who said, how can we get people done with their taxes in 10 minutes? Okay, and so this is innovating in one of our oldest business units, and our biggest single business, about $1.6 billion in revenue. And this small team, 3 people, said, how can we get taxes done in 10 minutes? So first of all, we're not going to try to do Scott's taxes. We're going to focus just on simple taxpayers. And then we got to eliminate the data entry. So they toyed with, could we take the W-2 and put it on the scanner? You know, most homes now, you got a printer that's a multifunction. Well, people know how to print. They don't know how to scan on those things. And then they thought about using the digital cameras and then link the camera to the computer. And then they looked at the cameras in here, which were, when they started this 3.5 years ago, too shitty, and the W-2s are badly printed. And they were told by the experts it wouldn't work. But they kept working. And they kept working. They worked without some outsiders. And they now got this thing, SnapTax. Snap a picture of your W-2 with your phone. We OCR it, enter all that data for you, ask you 9 more questions if your taxes are simple, and people will report they're done in 8 to 10 minutes.
Wow.
It's 5 stars on the App Store, selling like crazy, and the reviews are the best I've ever seen for anything. We had one guy write in that he just finished his taxes in the bathtub. Another guy, and this was 2 years ago, the first year we'd gone national with it, who wrote, it was April 14th, he said, I just finished my taxes in bed with my girlfriend. She's so stoked she might even wear the Valentine's gift I just gave her.
What's the role of experimentation and R&D at Intuit?
Yeah. This is now going back 6, 7 years. I was bothered by how many, because we got dozens and dozens of internal startup projects, how many of those didn't work. Some had issues inside where the bureaucracy or the hierarchy got in the way. Others got out and didn't work. Things I believed in, things our people believed in. And the great waste there is, the greatest waste is when you have great people with great talent who work on something that customers just don't want. Just the opportunity cost of what that team could have built. There was something in the decision-making that I felt was just not the way it should be. And predicting consumer behavior is really hard. You heard Dave Morin talk about a whole bunch of the stuff they learned, they didn't figure out, they just observed. Oh, shoot, people are changing photos. Well, maybe we should. But they didn't predict that. But when you do a startup, you're having to predict what behaviors will be. And in fact, our odds were no worse than VCs. VC odds, 1 or 2 out of 10 for a traditional VC are actually ones they're proud of. Then they got a few they can slough off to some company to buy, and then a bunch of zeros. But then it struck me as I noticed a pattern across some other companies. And so starting in 2007, we started working on, let's make decisions instead of having the boss make the decision. What decisions can we make by experiment? Where the experiment makes the decision. And this is quite countercultural. Managers kind of learn from other companies, and they get told that the role of the manager is to be kind of the decision maker. You're, the Caesar making the decision. And this is actually telling managers, no, your job is to put in the systems that allow teams and brand new employees to run rampant, easy experiments with nobody standing in their way. So the experiment can make the decision, not you. Now, you can't do that for every decision. There's a whole bunch that have got to be opinion-based. But I'm surprised how many decisions. Our IT division, HR now use experiments to make decisions inside the company. We've had projects that management didn't like at all, but because of the freedom to experiment, teams ran experiments, and the experiments worked. They savored surprises. And one of our fastest growing big businesses in India is all out of experiments run by a team there. Management over there hated the idea because it was a business, nothing we'd ever done before. It's countercultural. So I now believe that in this innovation age, that for all of us, we need to look at how we can use experiments to drive the decision making and change the roles of managers so that brand new people with the company can run experiments and figure out stuff the organization would never have allowed them to if you got the organization in the way.
With real customers?
With real customers. Oh yeah, it's not an experiment if it's not real customers.
Yeah.
Real customers making real decisions that they think are for real to do real stuff. Yeah, it's not an experiment if it doesn't count without that.
So you've been on the boards of some great companies, eBay, Amazon, Intuit itself. Do you have some advice for these guys here about how to get value from your boards?
Yeah. Two things. One, be very selective on who you allow on your board. Because even though more than your spouse, you can't get rid of them. Divorce is a formal procedure, unfortunately, and you can use that. There's not a formal divorce procedure that's at your control for board members. And you're going to have to sit and listen to that person's advice, no matter how bad it is. So be very selective. And my criteria is, which I've only recently come to understand, I could have done this better earlier. Pick somebody whose advice you really want, whose advice you can't get enough of. That would be the hiring criteria for a board member. So that's one. And then the second is in your board meetings and individually, tell the board members where you want help. Tell them where the problem is, where the challenge is, where you're uncertain. It's the easiest thing, but so many CEOs act, well, like I'm in charge, I know what I'm doing, don't show any weakness. Well, the problem is board members, one, they hate people who try to act like there's no problem, but most importantly, board members want to help. If they're on a board, they want to help. So they're going to help, whether it's and they're going to find areas to help. And if you haven't given them any guidance of where you need it, they're going to be helping in places you don't want it, you don't need it, and they're in the way. So tell them where to focus. Before every board presentation, somebody's going to pitch, have that person lead off with saying, we'd really like your help in the following area. Now, we're going to go through the pitch, but just know the first slide is, here's where we really want your help. And the last slide is, here's where we really want your help. And then the board members will naturally start helping where you most need it and where you want it. Plus, they'll think you're awesome for being so inviting and so willing to admit where the opportunities and challenges are. It's a simple thing, but it really works.
So let me close by asking you what one thing you would think these entrepreneurs should know that they don't, or should be doing that you've too often seen people fail to do.
Oh, this is one that I blew for 23 years. Get a coach. So think of the best athletes in the world. I don't know if it's Tiger Woods or Kobe Bryant. Do they have coaches? Absolutely. Yep. They couldn't possibly improve, no matter how brilliant their talent level, if they didn't have a coach working with them on technique, rethinking. I guess Tiger Woods went through a massive change of his swing at one point, all prompted with a coach. Get a coach. And get one who'll do a 360, who'll go regularly talk to all the folks you work with, who work for you, those on your board, and will listen, pull out from those people, from your folks, how you're really doing, what's good and what's not. Because I've learned if you're a boss, you're not hearing the true story from your people. They're polishing the apple and giving you this happy pablum about how great you are, and they're not telling you the truth about where you're not. So you're flying blind, and you're not going to see it. I mean, unless you're an amazingly self-reflected human. And I think the last one of those died about 2,000 years ago on the cross. You're not seeing the full technicolor view of where you got to change. You're just missing it. Your psychology won't allow you to see it. You need someone who will dangle it in front of you so you can't miss it. So this person's got to do 360, keep secrecy so you can't tell who said what, summarize it for you in a brilliant way, and then force you to confront it. And pick one you're going to work on, and really you got to religiously work on that. And that person's got to come back and do more 360s so people can tell you, so you can find out if it's working. And make improving yourself your job one. And the only way you can do that's with a feedback loop. So what an experiment is, it's a way to get a feedback loop to make decision. And you're not getting an accurate one today, so get a person in who will do that for you. We were doing that for our execs, and I saw this guy, and he was really good. He'd asked me to give my point of view on some of our execs. And I finally said, shoot, I'm the only guy here who doesn't get a performance review. I bet I could use this. So he did. I'm 360 on me, and oh boy, did I need it. Oh, I had so much deferred maintenance. I was leaving a trail of destruction on various teams that I wasn't seeing. I mean, my guts were telling me it was there, but I didn't want to admit it. Oh, boy. I had a lot of work to do. And it's so much better now. I mean, I screw up from time to time, and I got areas to work, but it is so much better. I'm so much more effective. People are so much happier. Change happens so much. People are excited to meet with me, where in the past at times, it's now exemplary for others to learn from. I mean, I pity the role model I was for 23 years and what bad lessons people were taking away. It's transformational, and I just wish I'd done it 20 years earlier.
Well,
so
thanks.
don't wait 23 years to get a coach.
Thank you, Scott. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, Howard.
This is a great way to end.